A friend of mine asked me a question: Are there dinosaurs in the Bible? The absolute answer is totally yes. There are absolutely dinosaurs in the Bible. Uh, Go to Job 38 and 39, or it's 39 and 40, and look up Leviathan and Behemoth, and there's your answer right there. But there's more to this answer than just that. For me to explain this, I'm going to have to explain a few things that might seem to be disconnected. But I'm doing it to explain some things about how looking this subject up is kind of interesting and a bit hidden. First of all, okay, so back in the 70s and up to the early 80s, this is a political thing or an event that occurred. And I'm using it for an example. When AIDS first came out, one of the major newspapers, it was either like the New York Times or the Post or the, San Francisco. It was a major paper. It had a pyramid of photographs. There were two at the top, and they went down to where there was several across the bottom. There was pyramids of all these, and almost all of them were pictures of men. And it was a pyramid of these two guys had been airline stewards, and they had gone to Africa, and they got AIDS, and they were homosexual, and most of the people in the pyramid were homosexuals, and they died of AIDS early on. But that's almost impossible to find that photograph. You can't go to the first 5 or 10 links or 100 links even in Google. You may not even be able to find it. And it was on a major front of a newspaper. There's another case like this I'll give you. Greenpeace. There's a case where people videotaped these guys. They were dressed up in furs. They were on a beach, and it was covered in ice. And these guys took clubs, and they were smashing these baby seals. They were killing them with clubs. And it went all over the country, and everyone was mad about it and about these people clubbing these baby seals. So some reporters, they found out where the location was. It was in the pictures. And so they went to that beach, and there were natives there, Inuit or whatever. And they asked them, they showed them the pictures, and the Inuit looked at it, and they were laughing at the pictures. And they asked the Inuit, do you kill baby fur seals? And they're like, oh, yeah, we kill them. We kill the heck out of them. And he said, but why are you laughing? And they're like, because those guys, when they killed it, if they'd have just waited 2 weeks, that baby fur seal pelt, the skin, was worth a lot of money. And that's why the Inuit killed the baby fur seals, was to sell the skins, the pelts. So whoever those people were who were just smashing baby fur seals, they weren't Inuit. So they couldn't blame it on the natives. So they followed their pictures, and they found those 4 guys meeting with Greenpeace in Moscow. Okay? So it was a fake piece. They did this fake news thing where they videotaped themselves killing some baby seals to get everybody mad, but it was all a big lie. But try finding anything about that. Even 5 or 10 years ago, it was hard 5 years ago. It was really hard to find stuff. 10 years ago, it would have been a little bit easier if you knew where to look in the Internet archives, etc. But now it's really, really hard to find valid information that was on the TV. It was on the news. I'm saying this to say it's the same thing when you try to study dinosaurs. When you try to study anything that's really important, there are people who might have a vested interest in you not seeing that information. Just like Greenpeace might not want you seeing that they did that. So over the decades, they just buy up a bunch of stuff and use the Internet archives, and they kind of just get that all kicked off somewhere, so you don't see that anymore. Same thing with whatever homosexual lobbies. They might not want to have that picture from the front of the newspaper. There's actually newspapers who will they'll go back and they'll print another page for that page. It's been done to replace something they don't want being seen. Well, it's the same thing with dinosaurs. So when you try to go look some of these things up, and even some things I'm going to tell you, I don't know how to find this information anymore. And you're not going to find it if you're one of those people who goes to the first 10 links at Google. or even the first 150 links, you're not going to find anything. They don't want you to find these things. They work really, really hard to bury them. And that's the key issue. No matter what you believe about this, an understanding that if someone is hiding something from you, it's not for your benefit. You need to understand that. And there's a lot about the dinosaurs that's hidden. So first we'll go over a couple things about the Bible and about the dinosaurs. One of the key things you're going to need, because we're going to look at the scriptures, is you're going to need to go to Strong's Exhaustive Concordance on your phone or on the computer. You can use any search engine, and it's not a big complicated thing. All right, we're going to teach you about it, and we're going to teach you super fast, and this is going to give you the best weapon you need when you're going to go study the Bible. So you go look up shit your own self. You don't need my ass, okay? Secondly, we use Bible to interpret Bible. And we don't just take any piece we want. We can't go over here and say, oh, it said this here, and I could put that word with this and make this say something else, because that's called lying. That's called making the Bible lie, okay? It needs to fit the context. It's like I wouldn't want to say something you said 2 years ago and cut it and splice it with something you said 2 days ago and then try to hand that to somebody, because that might not be true, you know? So Bible interprets Bible. Context is king. It's going to fit the context. You look above it, you look below it, you understand what they're talking about there, so you don't just take things and piece them together. So, first off, one more clue that you need is Bible uses turns of phrase just like people do. Like, we'll say, oh, it rained cats and dogs today. Okay, that doesn't mean there were little puppies and kitties and, felines and canines coming out of the sky. Okay, the Bible's just like that. It's a turn of phrase. It's a way of saying something, okay? It's like, oh, man, we worked all day. Well, actually, no, we worked about an hour and 45 minutes later than we normally do, and it was harder than normal, and I didn't get my break. But we didn't really actually work all day. That's just a turn of phrase, and the Bible is the living languages, the Greek and the Hebrew, Aramaic, etc., and they were living then, and they have turns of phrase. So when you hear somebody say, oh, well, the earth is flat because God said he called the angels from the four corners of the earth, that doesn't mean the earth is flat. That's like I called them from the north, south, east, and west. It's a turn of phrase. There's another scripture, and it depends on which version you use, which talks about King Nebuchadnezzar. And somewhere in Daniel, in this version, it says, whenever they were commanded to, and they played certain instruments and all this, everybody in the world had to bow down to the statue that Nebuchadnezzar raised up. Well, that's a turn of phrase. It means everybody that they all knew, everybody in that continent, everybody that they can conceive of. But, the Chinese and the Incas, they didn't give a shit about Nebuchadnezzar's statue, okay? So you have to understand there's turn of phrase in the Bible. So don't take everything like, oh, it has to be literal in this way, or the Bible's not perfect. No, it's living languages. Okay, there's flexibility there. The other thing is like we're going to talk about dragons, there's a lot of different ways the Bible uses dragons. The Bible uses dragons for real dragons, what we would call dinosaurs. Dragon was just the name for dinosaurs until they made up the name dinosaur. And there's a lot of this about how they made up the names that they kind of made up, because they made up the rock. They said, we're going to call that Cretaceous rock. And then we're going to go, oh, well, this is a Cretaceous dinosaur because we found it in the Cretaceous rock that we just pulled the name out of our ass. So it's very circular thinking right there. They don't know. They made up a lot of this shit, and they change the dates on stuff all the time, and they lie. They just fucking lie. Okay? There's a lot of reasons why people lie. You tell me that I'm going to become the head of a college, and I'm going to have all these buildings named after me, and undergrads are going to want to sleep with me, and I'm getting so many millions of dollars to find a missing link. Well, I'm going to find you a missing link. Some of it's just greed. There's a lot of politics, and there's a lot of stuff that people don't want you to know, because if you understand things, knowledge is power. You can understand things. You can go beyond what they want you to know, or what they want you to think or believe. Okay? So, and the phrase, the concepts of the ways dragon is used in the Bible vary. It's used for real, literal, what we would call dinosaurs, and what the English would call he smite him a dragon with his spear, you know. Exactly what we're talking about, the big fire breathing, like the Chinese dragon. Dragons are in every culture. They literally lived, and they didn't live bazillions of years ago. They're not treating you very nicely with their lies. And it's stupid, stupid lies, okay? We've got dinosaurs that have been found recently that have, flexible tissue in their bones, Tyrannosaurus rex. You could see the blood, you could see the vessels. They're not 40 million years old. They're a few thousand years old, sure. They're not 40 million years old. And they're all buried like that because of the flood. And the flood is just a natural cyclical thing that happens to the earth. Every few thousand years, the earth goes through a process, like what's fixing to happen now, by the way, where it starts to really jack up the poles and the magnetosphere spins out. And that's what a bunch of stuff in Revelation is about. Okay, but about dinosaurs. It also uses dinosaur, dragon, the concept of dragon, talking about Satan. Okay, so it calls him the dragon. So it uses it as a metaphor. Okay, and it uses it poetically. There are some places in the Bible where it might be poetically used, etc. So you need to understand every time it says dragon, it doesn't mean a dinosaur, but every time it says dragon, it also doesn't mean Satan. Okay, it could be a metaphor for that, but he could be actually talking about a dragon. And it talks about, one of the things you need to look at when you're looking at scriptures about the dragon, context is king, you might want to look at the places where it talks about the habitat. It says, and the dragon was in the rushes beside the roaring river, and things about the dragon when he describes it, like his scales were so hard that no spear could pierce it. You know, talking about him having steam coming out of his nose and things like this, concepts like this. These are real pieces of evidence that if there weren't people with a vested interest against the Bible, they would be treated just like Sanskrit or any other ancient writings. And those have a lot of truth in them. Dragons are historically absolutely factual creatures that lived with human beings up until rather recently. Marco Polo saw dragons. The Chinese had a court dragon keeper, and he had a large staff. And they even have writings about how the dragons were larger, and then over the generations, later and later, they got smaller and smaller. They're very real. You can look up a dragon if you want to look at one. Looks like a big giant horny toad. There's a dragon they recently found, the whole body, and you can see. And this is what people are talking about when it says they fought a dragon. And they lived until rather recently, but the earth has been changing, and we haven't noticed it. There's a lot of changes. The amount of oxygen, there's a lot of other changes. So, let me see if I can give you an idea about that world. We have fossils of dragonflies with 4, 5, 6 foot wingspan. A dragonfly, a bug, okay? But that's a pretty big insect with a 4 or 5 or even 6 foot wingspan. Okay, there is a fern that grows, and I don't remember the name exactly. I think it's Lipodendron or something like that. It grows in Texas, but it's one of these kind that grows up and it has this spiral here. It grows like 16 to 18 inches, 19 inches tall. Well, we have fossils of that fern over 150 feet tall. So I want you to think about that. You're talking about a completely different ecosystem than anything we've ever seen. On a scale we can't imagine. It's on a scale of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or something. I mean, it's so massive, and it's just issues of scale. But a massive, different world. So, I mean, what do you think the flowers were like when the ferns were 150 feet tall? What other things were different at that time that we don't see and don't know? So, that is not that long ago. That's just a few thousand years ago. The Earth got hit. The Earth has a cycle. And a lot of the prophecies and the revelations and stuff are actually about the cycle of the earth. The earth has a cycle. When it talks about the before the flood, it says the windows of heaven broke open and the fountains of the great deep burst forth. Okay, that says that the firmament, or this area that was believed to be up there in the sky, which is probably moisture vapor, somehow shattered or was hit. We think it was asteroids, whatever, meteorites or whatever came in through there. I believe that it was actually debris from a micronova from our sun, okay? And it says the fountains of the great deep burst forth. Well, that's the subterranean water that's under the crust of the earth. Well, these things are actually coming and going on now. We're now in that cycle. That's what's going on with a lot of the prophetic things that are in the book of Revelation. If you go to Revelation 8:12, you'll see that. If you just look at it and see what it says, when it says the moon was red. Well, the moon turned red because the light from the sun was hitting the moon, because the sun was going through this pre-micronova crusting over thing. It's kind of like when you see sunspots, but on a larger level. There's some ancient writings about it among the Chinese, and it's called the three-legged raven, where they saw this in the sun before they got hit. And by the way, it's interesting to think about the side of the earth that sees this on the sun maybe not be the side that gets hit, because you got a couple of days before all the stuff from the sun hits the earth. And this stuff that's on the sun, when it crusts over, scientists estimate it's between 100 and 300 miles thick. It's all this debris, and it flies out of there at about 15,000 miles a second or something, and it's headed out in a micronova going out. And a lot of planets micronova. I can show you a picture of a bunch of different planets at micronova. You can go look them up in Wikipedia even. And they're known micronova. They micronova on a schedule. It's just ours is on a long schedule, and theirs is like every 30 or 40 years, okay? So suns don't just blow up, they micronova. And that's what killed off the dinosaurs and stuff back then. They're right when they say meteorites and stuff. Yeah, there's big, large chunks of stuff headed out from the sun in all directions. That's why Mars is all scratched up on one area, where like 90% of the hits are on one area. Mars had an atmosphere. Mars could have had life, And another thing about the flood and about dinosaurs and all this stuff in creation, I believe God makes the, The Bible says Jesus is the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And nothing that was made without God. And it says the Word, or Jesus, is the framer of worlds, or the framer of universes. All these planets, this is where God grows whatever he wants to grow. Okay, these are all like giant terrariums or aquaponics sets to grow just certain forms of life. God deals in life. God makes life. And God made us just so he could shine his light in us, and boy or girl, male, female, Scythian, Jew, doesn't matter what your organs are down there at all to God. Okay, and in fact, Jesus only came to earth. Sorry, I'm digressing. Jesus only came to earth for one purpose, and that's to make sons for God. That's his only purpose. All the rest of it's tertiary, and how it had to be done and all this kind of stuff. Tertiary, every bit of it. From Adam to me to past me. All of it. It's about one thing. Making sons for God, okay? And when I say sons, I don't mean they all have a penis. I don't mean that little girls go to heaven and become boys or some kind of other stupid shit. You'll get people to believe this. No, he's talking about sons by position. We are heirs by position and sonship. He's talking about we're all firstborn sons. There's no secondborn, thirdborn. There's no runt. There's no little girls that don't count or anything like. We are all in standing perfectly as sons. Jesus made us heirs. Okay? And all of this, okay. We're supposed to be, you could say like a mirror, or you could say like a computer and software or whatever, but it's like, it's Christ in us, the hope of glory. It's not me in me, the hope of glory. It's not you in you. We're to be shining him back. So it's him in us, which is just the best parts of us. It's the parts like when you first see your baby born, the pieces of love, the absolute love. Well, that love that we get, that's just like if you took his love out and you cleaned it really, really, really good. That little piece that we feel there, and I'm not making fun of it because it's the greatest love to us. That little bitty piece is a fleck that was missed. That's how much of his love we get. And we're meant to go and share all that with him. And he says he will give you all things. And all things means all things. He will share everything with us. He's not going to hold it back, because we're the most valuable thing that's ever been. That's why they want to lie to you. You are the most valuable thing. God paid the price of himself. God killed God so you could go to be with God. You're the most important, the most valuable thing in the world. And that's why the devil wants to lie to you, and that's why they want to lie to you. They want to deceive you in any way. Because if they can make you misunderstand what you are, and by valuable, I don't mean we're prideful. I mean, we're just special and specially loved. So our purpose is to shine God, God in us, shining back to God, shining to God back into us, to shining back to God. And creating and doing all these things. That's why all the special things are in you. Your ideas, your ways you do things, your quirks, even stuff that comes out sideways and bad. It could have been originally really good stuff in you, but now it's broken. And so the dragon, Satan, he doesn't want you to know about real dragons. But if you know about real dragons, and you know about real giants. If you know about real giants, you know why God had to destroy the earth. And you know about all the problems. This is all broken. But look at the most beautiful stuff here. Okay? And this is like the shit that doesn't even grow under the dumpster in heaven. Okay? Because there's no dumpster, right? Okay? God works in biological life. God makes life. That's what he does. That's his modus operandi as far as what we're seeing. Okay? And it's perfect. Okay? There's so much more about this. So if you want me to talk to you some more about it, I will. I'm sorry I rambled. God bless.